Yes, yes,
Is
perfect.
my sound okay? Good. All right. Now, this is my first time to use this platform, and I would like to share my screen. And I see something here. All right. Okay. Let me do this. Can,
Yes, we were. It came, but then it went away again. The screen. That the
okay.
yeah. We can see it now. Yes.
How about that? Is
Yes.
that okay?
Perfect. Perfect.
All right. So this is first. I'd like to thank Culture Monk, Sudipto, and what a lovely night here in the Philippines to also meet Dr. Gosh and Sylvie. I'm so happy to present this to this group. This is really a creative research, and the most recent work that I have created in Canada. I was born and raised in the Philippines, and this presentation would really talk about my current interest in my research and also in my scholarship. So this is yeah. So it's about the curiosity of how do we bring our roots when we migrated, right? And how do we engage our communities in a country that's not we're not really part of, but becoming part of our consciousness. So I would like to first let you know that I vacillate from the Philippines and Canada. I came to Canada in 2013 as a Filipino student, and the Philippines is located in Southeast Asia. It's about 16 hours away from Winnipeg, and these two locations are entirely different. As you would know that Winnipeg is in the center of Canada. It's very cold during winter. The Philippines is a tropical country. We have, but it also shares similarity. Like we also have indigenous peoples. Winnipeg is located in the Treaty One. It's the homeland of the Métis people, of the First Nations peoples in Canada. Now, I migrated as a student in 2013 as an international student and as an artist of theater. I wanted to go deeper with my art and in craft of directing, and I really wanted to be a better artist, a better theater scholar and artist, and also a good storyteller. So, but Canada, I thought that I was ready to migrate because the Philippines was colonized by United States of America. So we speak English here. It's our second language. But when I live in Canada, I thought that it's such an unfamiliar country for me. And I wanted to ask myself, how do I not forget my history, not forget my tradition, not forget my arts while I'm studying the Western theater? So that was my first question. And I realized that my roots are very important as I learned Western art. So this is me when I was 8 years old, and I live in a very challenging community in the Philippines. You see Barangay Pinyahan. Barangay is a village, and it's very crowded. It's a lot of people, and this is the current picture of that community where I grew up. But surrounding this community are fabulous architecture, and I would go and just appreciate all these big architectures. You see this. These are the city hall that we have. There's like a kind of a storytelling. It tells about our city, so it's embedded in the building. So this I thought is my first and primal connection to the arts. And I realized that though my life growing up in a community is so challenging, I also enjoy living in this community because of the my connection with this huge architecture. So it's also telling something about the Filipino culture and the disparity of life in this country where I grew up. Now, while studying in Canada, I also been really very active in comparing my traditions. So here are some of the photos that kind of represent the diverse theatrical conventions and traditions that we have back in the Philippines, which is very much rooted to folk traditions and religious traditions. So we were colonized by, the Philippines was colonized by Spain, and they also introduced their the theatrical traditions, and it leads into our religions and pre-colonial traditions. So these are liturgical singings and rituals. We also have pageantry, just like you see here, the Flores de Mayo, or the summer festival of flowers, where huge pageantries are curated in our community, and there's also singing contests. There's also theatrical performances in a proscenium play in proscenium sites. All right, so but what is so interesting? Filipino artists, would find a way to bring the pre-colonial performance traditions to a very Western theatrical spaces. All right, and you see the on your left side, you would see the pageantry, the festival. All right, and this is our folk traditions, folk performances, and then artists, those who are Western oriented directors, would also bring the aesthetics of this folk tradition into a very Western theatrical spaces using the elements or the technology of the West that's also been introduced to us through colonial processes. I was also introduced when I was college with a variety of Western classical plays of Shakespeare, Spanish plays, Chekhovian plays, Ibsen. All right, so I'm sharing this to you because I also would like to articulate that while we have ritual performances, we also have Western theatrical um, plays, classical plays, adapted into Filipino context, adapted in sociological and historical context. Sometimes it's a purely English, sometimes it's a classical text in Filipino or in Tagalog. Now, as an artist, as a diasporic artist in Canada, I am haunted by our historical um, histories of the Philippines. And currently, as you would know, the president of the Philippines is a son of Ferdinand Marcos. And as I interrogate my own history of migration, I cannot turn away from the very beginning why there's a huge number of Filipinos migrating. It was Ferdinand Marcos who mandated or established the migration of the Filipinos in 1972 when he signed the labor code, where the Filipinos were sent to Saudi Arabia, Hong Kong, and United States of America. So that was the beginning of our servitude to the global world. You see here a photo of Ferdinand Marcos and the President Lyndon Johnson. And there's an very intimate political relationship between the Philippines and the United States of America. As a former colony, we became also a very strong ally of United States during the presidency of Ferdinand Marcos. And you could also see here Imelda Marcos, which is the wife of President ex-President Marcos. And migration is not new to me. It runs in our family. Two of my uncles came to went to Saudi Arabia, the first wave of the Filipino migration in Saudi Arabia in the 1970s, and also in the 1960s, my uncle went to New York City, and that was the beginning of my understanding of how Filipinos migrated, because they would send us postcards of Saudi Arabia and also of New York. But in 1986, there was a big revolution. Marcos and his family was deposed because of extreme corruption. All right, and so this is my history. This is one of the histories that's really haunting me as an migrant in Canada. Now, I would like to share to you how this history bleeds into my current project. Alonsina's Empire is a current project that I did, and Alonsina is a mythical character in the Philippines, and this is a story of a woman who was kept by a husband. He's also a god, and the wife Alonsina would like to create, but the husband Tungkong Langit kept him in the house and said, just stay here. And so she fled the Golden House. And so I collaborated with a playwright in the Philippines, and we thought of Alonsina as a migrant, a Filipino migrant in Winnipeg. So she left the Golden House and arrived in Manitoba in the 1970s, during the time when Marcos really opened the Philippines as a new country that sends many Filipinos abroad. Okay, so and this project is a kind of a combination of it's a very ceremonial, it's contemporary, it's cosmic, because it's also a folk story, and the folk story is integrated to the 1970s history, in which there's environmental movement. There's 1970 was interesting because there's also Vietnam War. It was the time of the women's liberation and gay rights movement. So so the playwright and I conceive this kind of mash-up of two histories and stories. Okay, so Filipinos going to in Canada. It also signed a Migration Act in the 1970s. All right, so a lot of Filipinas came to Winnipeg as sewers, working in the sewing industries. All right, and so Alencina became one of these women working in the factories, textile factories. All right. Okay, so we conceptualize the world of Alencina through the local history of Filipinos in Winnipeg. By combining the Asian and the Western arts, I try to conceptualize theatrical processes of migration theater within Canadian theatrical ecology. Our students, I have to tell you that we created this in the Department of Theatre and Film in the University of Winnipeg. And most of our students are really deep in studying the method acting, the psychorealism of Konstantin Stanislavski. So this kind of theater project is kind of a portal to also study Philippine traditions, hyper realism. One of the inspirations of this production that I did was Fernando Botero. He's a Spanish um, painter. Okay, sorry. I've also used Chinese festival mask in this production. Excuse me. And I've used the Philippine musical tradition, which is the kulintang. It's a kind of an Indonesian gamelan. So this, if you may allow me, I'll allow you to. So he's Filipino artist who came to Winnipeg from Vancouver and taught our students how to play this Philippine instrument.
Audio is not.
Yes, Dennis, you have to increase the audio on that if it is possible.
Okay.
No,
Okay,
there's
that's
the the audio tab on there. Yes.
okay. That's the loudest that I can get. But
Okay.
so that's the musical instrument. Now I'll show you some of the photos of the production. This is now the technical dress rehearsal, and I've worked with another faculty, Adam Parbon Singh, and our students. So it's a combination of of our faculty members and also our students are taking theater courses. So these are the rehearsal processes, and now these are the masks that we created. Now, in creating in this production, I had I used this framework: the orientation, artistic, and output, paglalayag, paglikha, paghahayag. All right. So to arrive in the full creation of this project. All right. So the paglalayag is really a historical and cultural education of our students, where we invited and engaged with community members, Filipino community members, to tell their stories to our students. So these are the Filipinos who came to our rehearsal, and they gave a training on, and tattoo making, tattoos, Philippine traditional tattoos, history of the Filipinos in Winnipeg. So their real life stories when they arrived in Winnipeg. Basically, I've invited them to become interlocutor of our culture and also our history for our Canadian students. So you would see these are some of the photos of our rehearsal processes where the community members are part of the work. And now I introduced also Asian theater workshop. Dr. Gosh is very much a regular of our department who's been giving us workshops to our students. And then, of course, sorry, there's now these are some of the shows, photos of our shows. Yeah, sorry, kind of multi.